leaves are budding. It's beautiful. Okay, so there's some pros and cons to awareness, I suppose. Knowing who you are means you have to hold labels. The labels are in the distinctions of experiences, so I talk about my past and things I've gone through and how that gave me certain perceptions. And I do that as a form of expression because we all have these kind of things. But that's a ritualistic way of communicating that I have to get out of my system because I don't really necessarily see the benefit in calling out potential statics in this existence any longer. I've mentioned many times that it's always going to be happening, so we have to happen, and when you're not happening, then you notice those patterns out there. And you fill the void with other things because you're remembering to happen. So that's what I'm feeling like I'm going through right now. I'm living an expression, an example, a reminder that we're all living. How we're living is what life is to us, essentially. So if you can find why that would be worth anything and do whatever that is, then you cultivate value. That's what we're doing. Energetically, we always have that opportunity to do that. to do that. I always hated talking as a kid. But so we always have this now thing happening. But the now thing isn't always clear because we're always doing other things and there's other happenings happening in us. So trivializing potential for the absolution of a comfort in knowing something is something I've been trying to sacrifice. And I released a lot of things or changed a lot of things which gave new opportunity for another spirit to rise, and more free-flowing spirit. I call it authentic because it's not as clingy. I want the clinging to be a falling into a natural expression and flow in life. I feel like the wind of who we are in relation to what we're doing and how we're living is how we are engaged in this world, and it binds us to perception. Medusa's stare. And so let me speak astrologically so you can understand things in a better way. And by better, I just mean a more constructive. I like beauty with application when there's a function, a beneficial function involved. So practical beauty, that's what this system is. Power without perception. But how do you value yourself enough to hold potential? Because that's what it will take to understand what that is. So sometimes you have to lose and go through all this shit, and you have to do it to yourself in order to know the value of what it could be, at least potentially. Because the potential value is less iconic. It doesn't get snagged up so much. It doesn't give you the expectations to sacrifice. So a secret way that Aries energy, the flickering flame, the spark, and the reignition can be known is through the Sagittarian path. The curing of the fire to the mountain, to the top of the mountain. It rose to aurora, it took out an entire forest, and it died down to a stick, and someone's bringing that stick up to the mountain, and there's only one, there's only room for one in that process, and that's the individual, which is feeding and informing, helping to cultivate Aquarius, the spirit of Aquarius. Through giving it what it can burn, only the truth will burn truly for you. Everything else just burns you. And we do it to ourselves most of the time. And it only takes a few years when you're young to get that lesson imprinted into you. Okay, so right now the moon is at 28 degrees of Pisces, balsamic phase conjunction with a very powerful Neptune at the anaretic degree of Pisces, 29. I call this the beta point, but it's the alpha, beta, omega thing. It's a dynamic switch area of energies. That's how I see it. In its spiritual healing. Informing Mars as the moon comes into a perfect conjunction, and then a new phase, and then comes into balsamic with Mars, and then perfect conjunction, new phase, and keeps dinging, informing realizations through your emotional awareness. And how it's not fitting so well into the world any longer. The emotional turmoil is feeding in on us, essentially. And we can see that part of the technical advancement in this world has been to nullify that by sedating us with amazing opportunities to sit on the couch and veg out with everything we could ever want, essentially. And we were reduced to that value, lowest common denominator values, because the world beats us down, because our societies are weird. They're unnatural. Our cultures are unnatural for the individual. And that's the school, so that we can have the lesson of individuation, understand what the fuck it is to feel like an alien in this place, but to actually realize that we're all alien, we're trying to relate, and we're sacrificing our power because we're learning what it is, and it's just realizing all sorts of things, whatever's most important for you. So we analyze the shit, but having a clear idea of what you can do with it, how to apply what you've gone through, what you see, what you know to be about yourself, and most importantly, to understand there's a lot you don't know about the self, and that's where the potential is, essentially. And as you release the bullshit and you start to burn the stuff within yourself and you start to clear up the space and you start to see whatever was hidden within you in the world, giving you new signs, patterns, synchronicities, perspectives. It's just like when the sun moves across the sky. The light shifts, your perspective, you don't even have to move and your perspective will change. That's life happening. It's showing us at these micro scale, mundane, mythic, magic moments that we just don't even realize are effing happening. Because we're individuating into the mind, into the universe of consciousness, where we can all agree upon shit instead of grow and do real life. And of course, there's a need and a place for both. And you have to figure out what phase of your existence are you in. Are you with that or with something else? That's simple as it is. And then you can question and hypothesize and prophesize the potential outcomes that are yet to be realized. But I truly feel for myself as I change, then these outcomes change, because I no longer care about whatever was burning through my psyche to be experienced emotionally, sensationally, these feelings, these resonances within us, this music. It's just, when you tune everything out, you start to hear what it is. And then you notice it resonates with things in this reality, and situations and people and energies and dynamics, and then you fall into that. And sometimes in the process of cutting the world out, we sink into these resonances with existence which hold us, they comfort us, they promise us nostalgic fix. And then this is where you sink through what that is eventually. This is the secret process of the Gemini twins through Saturn in Capricorn. It's for your spirit to be reborn in Aquarius, and that's what every year you feel that energy. And just as there's a year, there's a Plutonic year, there's Yuga cycles, there's all sorts of goo-goo-plex bullshit. It's just figure out what language speaks to you. Hold it until it changes. Or you change, whatever. It's all good when it's used good. It's all bad when it's used bad, and we're the ones who determine that. Alright, so Sun at 14 degrees Taurus, almost the middle of Taurus. 14, and that's tension. Very tense energy at this area of the chart. I don't feel the tension in life. I do feel a will to be. So it's a powerful, stubborn energy. Now the moon is sextiling Jupiter, and Venus is coming into a balsamic phase conjunction with the Sun. Venus at 6 degrees, a Venusian number, Venusian degree, and it's still in the Venusian sector of Taurus according to Ptolemy, or Ptolemy. I like Ptolemy because it sounds more interesting. So you're realizing your value through living through your fears, knowing that you aren't who you thought you were because you're always growing, and it's just a realization of the measure of your own self-value, which reflects decisions, directions, ways that you apply your energy in this world for the betterment of the self, so that you can, if you so choose, be better for another. In whatever way that is for you. Maybe it's a dream. Maybe it's the body. Maybe it's the romantic other. Maybe it's your work, your family, your destiny, your desire. And if you're lucky, you've got all that stuff combined into one, because you've released so much stuff that there isn't that many things to put your energy into. That's a good way to be individuating in these times. Alright, so we're heading into the new moon of Taurus. I don't know if I'll do an analysis for that or not. I'm only going to talk when I feel drawn to speak on these things. Every day counts, essentially. Whatever realization you can hold in a day, cultivate that, nurture that, bring that forward. Then whatever energies are to come will be in resonance, reciprocity with your intention. And your intentions are going to be about where your focus is, what you're learning, how you're learning, to control, to put the power, to put the energy into life for you. The oxygen mask on for yourself before the other. It's just simple respect, essentially. If you live on your knees, you keep others down. And we see that in this world all the time. The mob rules, And so when the value of people is very low, it's very important to invest in the value of yourself, because the world is changing at these moments. It doesn't necessarily mean that people are controlling, pulling the strings. They just know that the energy is shifting, and it's a natural expression for whatever possession is coursing through their vein. Alright, so being the spirit within your own veins, finding out what your ancestors handed up to you and living that through is probably a very good way to live. And then whatever you do from there is extra, a blessing. Pluto is still sextile in Mars, now in the retrograde shuffle. I do believe we'll be hitting 29 Capricorn. I haven't studied the transit too closely, just looking at the initial energies to get a signature and find the language for this intuitive pulse. This reminds me of the power struggle of the self. A lot of people, they don't want to honor the power of their own imagination. They don't want to accept that all of anything that we believe to be true was a harpoon thrown into the void of existence, and we reconstructed meaning when we pulled it back. And that's all we all do. Some of us, we neuter ourselves, we break our own spirit, we never throw it into the harpoon, into the void of existence, and others were always pulling it through. And the ones that are always pulling it through, it's not easy for them to rise in this shithole because they haven't fed into the power of it. So if you've been feeding into the power of it, why don't you regurgitate all the shit you thought was a truth and figure out what it is for you? What's the actual meaning of your spirit in this life? And when you do that, you understand how to apply your emotions, how to release the demons, the darkness, so that light can actually show you some of the things that you had known but refused to see. And how much more powerful that makes you. Because you've got all this extra energy for real creative life rather than giving it to a lesser. And the reasons don't matter, it's just doing what matters when it matters that counts in life. And who's the judge but you? And you have that power alone. And that's basically all it ever boils down to. The meaning comes always. Alright, well, that's all I wanted to say, so thanks for watching, listening, and being.